Good afternoon, and welcome to the IAFC's monthly webinars on technology and how we're improving ourselves through our partnerships with our vendors. I'm Jeff Dillon. I'm a strategic advisor with the IAFC, and I'll be your moderator today for our panel. We want to thank our sponsor today, Microsoft, for their graciousness to host this webinar and bring forth the best people that have out there in the AI world to help share that information and educate our firefighters. Before we begin, audio is being broadcast using VoIP technology through your computer speakers or headset. Please make sure your speakers or headset are turned on and the volume is turned up. Audience microphones have been muted for this webinar. If you experience any technical difficulty, please contact the IFC support at webinars@iafc.org or via the chat function. The chat, Q&A, and handout tabs to the top right of your screen you'll see are used for chatting among everybody in the webinar. If you have a question, we want you to click on that Q&A tab and submit your questions right there. Our panel will then be answering those throughout the webinar and at the end. And I want to make sure that everybody sees that for this webinar, Microsoft has provided some handouts. So go up there and make sure that you download that handout that they provided. I want to mention real quick upcoming events for the IAFC. November 14 through 17, our Volunteer Combination Officer Section Symposium in the Sun, beautiful Clearwater, Florida. December 4th through the 6th, Technology Summit International travels to Oklahoma City. 25 events, March 27-29, our WUI Interface Conference in Kansas City, Missouri. May 6 and 7, Fire Rescue Med, Las Vegas. And May 13 through 15, Community Risk Reduction Leadership Conference in Glendale. Go ahead and mark your calendars today. This is today's panelists. They're each going to introduce themselves as they come onto the mic. And again, we want to thank our sponsor, Microsoft, for everything they do for the IAFC and for hosting this event today. A recording and a survey will be sent to the email you used today to register for this event following the completion of the webinar. So be looking for that and share that with your friends and coworkers. At this time, I want to turn it over to Kurt Landon, and he's going to kick us off. Take it away, Kurt.
Thank you, Chief. I appreciate it. Good morning, good afternoon to everyone. My name is Kirk Landbaum. I'm Director of Government Strategy for Microsoft here in the U.S., and I also serve as an industry advisor in the public safety and justice area. I worked 40 years in government and about 30 years of that in public safety specifically. So I have to say that we're really excited to be here with you today to both have our partners with the IAFC, our law enforcement partners, and really to have an expanded conversation about the use of AI in public safety. It's a conversation that we're having all over the country, really all over the globe every day. We hope to eliminate some mystique, thinking about maybe help you with a pass, improve safety to the public. And we've got a very distinguished panel of folks here that I'd like to start introducing to you today. First up, I'd love to introduce the CIO of the San Diego Sheriff's Department. Yosh, would you introduce yourself, sir?
Good morning and afternoon, everyone. Thank you guys for having me. I'm Yosh. I'm the CIO for the San Diego County Sheriff's Department down here. Been with the organization for 22 years and excited to have this conversation and eager to learn from the group as well. Thank you, Kirk.
Thanks, Yosh. We're glad you're here. And moving in no particular order, only because I see you on your screen in this area, in this direction, Major Brandon Hook from Fairfax County.
Thanks, Kirk. My name is Major Brendan Hook, as Kirk said. I'm with the Fairfax County Police Department in Virginia. We're the largest municipal police department in Virginia. I'm happy to be here. I am an assistant commander for our Planning and Research Bureau, which includes our IT division, our real-time crime center, our policy and legislative affairs, as well as our Office of Data and Strategy. I'm also a member of IGIS on their cybersecurity working group, and a member of the IACP Cybercrime and Digital Evidence Committee. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Major. Chief Fetterman, if you would introduce yourself, sir.
Good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you're at. Kevin Fetterman, I'm the Division Chief over Command and Emergency Planning for Orange County Fire Authority in Southern California. My main responsibility is our communication center, as well as being one of our all-hazard incident commanders for our Type 3 incident management team. And I function as our operational liaison for emerging technology to our information technology department. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Chief. Chief Winokur.
Hey, good morning. Dave Winokur, Fire Chief of the Moraga-Orinda Fire Protection District in the San Francisco Bay Area. I'm also a veteran fellow at the Hoover Institution at Stanford University, working on the intersection of wildfire and insurance. And prior to joining the fire service, I served on active duty as a Marine Corps infantry officer, stayed in the reserves where I'm a colonel. I recently served as the Chief of Staff in the Marine Innovation Unit, overseeing the introduction of innovative technology into the DoD ecosystem.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Chief. And I want to thank all of you for your service, both to our country and our citizenry. I'd love to introduce my peer who's going to kick off the discussion. Cy Narain, would you introduce yourself, sir?
Sure. Good morning, afternoon, everyone, depending on where you are. Cy Narain. I lead our technology strategy here for public safety and justice in the state of California. Background in public safety for about 20 plus years, and have had the pleasure and the honor to work alongside a lot of the individuals here that you see on this call. And so first off, to my fellow panelists, I want to thank you for your time and your service, because we know that it is not an easy thing to do on a day-to-day basis. And just working alongside you and watching you work has been a complete honor for the last 20 plus years. So with that, maybe if you can help us kick off. I know that our topic here talks about adapting to change, which quite often is a hard word for a lot of us. And it says innovating with AI in public safety. So if you can perhaps help us ground us in a definition of innovation, depending on your point of view and your perspective, that would be great. So maybe Chief Winokur, if you want to kick us off, what does innovation mean to you, and how do you see, maybe one way in which AI plays a role in that?
Great. I appreciate the opportunity. I think there's two things. One is taking a look about whether innovation and the technology that's normally associated with innovation, does it allow you to do your job better? And in our case, particularly on the fire service side, AI and advancing technology don't change the fundamental element of the job. And I think that might be a little different for law enforcement. And so really the question comes back to, is this allowing us to perform our job, to execute our mission to protect the public? Does it allow us to be more efficient and to do it better? And if the answer is no, regardless of how shiny and flashy and neat this thing looks, then no thanks. Appreciate the call from the vendor, and we're going to stay focused on the mission. But we've really struggled, and I think appropriately tried to balance whether or not the innovation that's being offered and the technology that will enable it would allow our existing people to get more done. We have very real limitations on growing the physical size of our staff. And so if things allow us to be more efficient in executing the core elements of the job, then we're all about it. But I have to say, that does require a clear understanding of what the core elements of your job are. So it's always very important to start discussion with the needs analysis before you start evaluating things, some of which are going to be very interesting, just not to what we do.
Awesome. I love what you said. You said context. I think two things, if I were to pick out, you said context and efficiency. Context is extremely valuable, right? And efficiency obviously is something that we're all after on a day-to-day. So, Major Hook, you want to sort of comment on that, or maybe your pulse on innovation and what it means to you?
Sure. And I think Chief Winokur hit on a lot of the major points. And really for me, it's how we institute and identify new methods to improve operational efficiency. And in law enforcement, we too are challenged with staffing shortages. So where we can find technology that can help us improve in light of staffing shortages, we want to institute that. We're also challenged with new threats and new types of behavior that are becoming more prevalent. So artificial intelligence can help us counter some of these new threats in innovative ways. But Chief Winokur's point about doing a needs assessment and having the technology fit the mission rather than the other way around is something that we definitely look to do. We can talk about that more throughout the panel, but I kind of really push for a crawl, walk, run approach to these new technologies. And I would also say AI is exciting and it's incredibly innovative, but it's just technology. You still have to follow all of your procedures, and you have to have a really good foundation of cybersecurity policies and procedures before really trying to implement some very advanced technology.
You mentioned crawl, walk, run. I know, Yosh, we've been on a lot of crawls lately. And so perhaps you want to shed some light on that. And then, of course, your pulse on innovation.
So, just like Chief Whitaker and Chief Hook, and, I grabbed my notebook because I wanted to start taking some notes as, some of these amazing leaders are talking and sharing their thoughts on it. And I completely agree with both of them, right? In terms of really the focus fundamentally should be operations for us. And for me, when I think about innovation, I look at it as an intersection of culture, leadership, and technology. And really, it has to be focused on all three of them, right? It cannot exist in itself without proper culture. We cannot innovate if we don't have operational focus or mission focus, as Chief Whitaker put it. And we also cannot innovate or really think about innovation if we don't have that leadership support from the top down to say, let's kind of look at some ideas on how to utilize technology as an efficiency driver, right? So for us, when we think about, at least when I think about innovation, I think about it from a intersection of culture, operations, and leadership, right? And bringing that to the idea that Chief Hook just talked about, right? Crawl, walk, run. Really identify it, identify some concepts, ideas that are really focused on operational outcome. So that's how we've tried to look at it from our perspective.
So I'm going to pick on maybe leadership and culture from those two. And I know, Chief Fetterman, we've had a lot of conversations on the importance of sort of leadership and leadership enabling your department to perhaps do more, experiment, iterate, and this whole idea of sort of trying out new things, which I know you're definitely part of a department that's known for that. So perhaps your take on that, and then if you can touch on sort of innovation from your lens, that would be great.
Yeah, well, a couple of things jump out right there. Certainly, Orange County Fire is very fortunate to have a fire chief like Brian Finnessy that is incredibly looking forward and looking at what is next to come. And so that enables all the leaders underneath to kind of fall in line and push that same path. I think for me, innovation really looks like three things. It's the people, the process, and the technology. And I think without any one of those stools, you can falter a little bit. But when you focus on all three, that's where you really start to get that synergism. I know we have had a couple initiatives, certainly FIRIS for the real-time fire intelligence gathering, the QRF program that we're delivering heli-tankers in a record amount of time, and then probably the cleanest utilization of AI for us has been the actionable Alert California cameras, where we'll deploy a full wildland response based on an AI hit or anomaly identification. So, but I think when you kind of circle the wagons, it really has a lot to do with not just the technology, but it's how we integrate it and how we become more efficient as leaders, and then how we lead by example to the people below us to show them that it's important to use it as decision support.
Well, Chief Fetterman, you've really sort of helped feed us into our next question by sort of already starting that. And the question I have for the panel is, AI means a lot of things to a lot of people, a lot of potential, a lot of capabilities. But let's maybe focus on one way that you think AI is playing a role or will play a role with public safety as you see it. And you can take it to whatever level you'd like. I mean, obviously, we're talking about improving efficiencies and things of that nature, but maybe we could dive down just a little bit deeper. And Chief Winokur, let me turn to you. Maybe one way that you're thinking about how AI can really benefit um, the mission.
Yeah, being able to process large quantities of data, find and extrapolate the patterns that lead to decision support tool, just like Chief Fetterman was talking about. If we can, things that we've never talked about as an efficiency, because we never had the ability to staff war rooms full of people staring at cameras trying to make sense of it all. Using AI to process the massive amounts of data that are becoming available from both remote sensing, smartphones. We now have, the reporting party ecosystem means something entirely different than it did 15 years ago. And being able to process all of that data in real time, so we avoid the compartmentalization, stovepiping of data that I think our legacy systems are just bound to end up. There's just going to be too much data in the pipe for human-based systems to sense and make sense. And using AI to process, find the patterns, and then export those in accessible decision support tools so that the human at the pointy end of the decision-making stick is able to execute informed by all the available data. I think we all, those of us who've been in this business for a while, there have been plenty of times where we got done fighting a fire, we just got our butt kicked, and you find out a week later that someone knew something that would have changed your decision-making, and you were unable to form that network of information flow in real time. That obviously has gotten a lot worse with the proliferation of sensing technology and will continue to get worse. I think AI as a processing, aggregation, and framework building tool to allow us to take advantage of all the available sensor feeds, both human and technological sensors, will be critical to our future success.
Yeah, that's a great answer. Great answer, Chief. And there is so much input, so much data to get through, so much feeds that think even with AI, it's going to take us a little time to even discern, what should continue to rise to the top, which really brings that whole aspect of AI is not going to answer every question for us, but it certainly is going to give us a lot better ways to get to the answers and have real decision makers make those answers. Major Hook, you and I have talked about this in the past in a couple of different ways and times, and it's always been great conversations. What's one way that you're thinking in terms of how AI is going to play a major role in public safety as you see it?
Thanks, Kirk. So I'll again echo what Chief Winokur said about the large sets of data being the problem. But in law enforcement, it's manifested itself in somewhat of a different way. When I started my career, we hand wrote reports. CAD was about as sophisticated as we got, and we did not have cell phones readily available in the street. So we have so much more data coming in now. A lot of it's generated by us. So we have body cameras, LPRs, surveillance cameras, digital record management systems. But we also have phones as a piece of evidence, right? This has changed everything. And my background is as a digital forensic leader and investigator. We're still figuring out where to put all this stuff safely and how we can make sure that it's available and easy to analyze. AI is going to help us make sure we find the blind spots across all those sources I mentioned, right? We have phones that are multiple terabytes now, and we have body camera videos that, for an agency of our size, and I forget what level of data we're at in terms of how much volume we have, it's impossible to look at all of it. It's impossible to look for an examiner to look at every artifact on a digital evidence phone. And then we have all these different sources of data, and it's possible that you can miss a correlation between those sources. So I think AI will help you find the blind spot and draw your attention to the important data. I recently saw a demonstration of an AI tool that we're looking at for our police academy. And it is a tool that acts as a suspect or a witness during an interview, because what we're seeing with our newer recruits is some of the verbal communication skills are not what they have been in prior generations. And this AI tool can analyze and respond based on programming you put in, prompts you put in at the beginning of an exercise, respond in real time to the interview questions, and then perform an analysis later that it measures you across many metrics and offers areas of maybe where you should have continued down that path of that interrogation. I was blown away by this. And I think the point I'm making is it drew your attention in that data where you could follow up for further questionings. Now, we're looking at it as a training item, but I think in the future, in the not too distant future, it's something we could look at as real time, sitting on some of our servers for live interviews and really help inform investigators about, let them pull back for a moment and draw down on, hey, this line of questioning could use some more sorting out. It's pointing out inconsistent statements that maybe you would not pick up in that moment as an interviewer because you're so focused in on taking in all that data of verbal and nonverbal cues. So I pontificated a bit for a moment, but like Kirk said, lots of data help us draw our attention to the important data.
I really like that example of the interviews. I recently participated in something with our company where we had similar simulations, but in a business context. Obviously, not at much at risk as you guys have on a day-to-day with the suspects, but it was, sort of grading me on my ability to talk to a leader about what's important to them, and then giving me feedback on how well I did. We start thinking about that across mounds of data as well. Where should we go with the investigation? Lots of stuff. I know you think about this stuff all the time. Would love to hear where your head's at on this.
And thank you for that, Kirk. And I think, first of all, how did you do on that interaction and talking with the leaders? I don't know about you guys, but I'm curious to know about that. You don't have to share with us. We can take that offline, right?
I'll let you know. Yeah. I've got some work to do. I found that
out. Don't we all? But having that aside, when it is so, as for us, right, and within my role, within the Sheriff's Department here in San Diego, we've looked at, when we started looking at AI a couple of years ago, we looked at it first and foremost, AI as a strategy, right? One of the main sort of core that we realized is that this goes back probably around 2021, 2022, right? Realizing that within the next few years, we're going to be inundated with products that are going to throw machine learning and AI just willy-nilly everywhere, right? We needed to look at AI as a strategy, and we also needed to build our own competency to a level where we can understand and assess, and really not only from a product perspective, but operational alignment, right? And start building that capacity in-house. So we've looked at it from that strategy perspective first. But having said that, we also started looking at how can we now really get comfortable internally with AI? How do we build some tooling or some capacity and some capability in-house, right? And so that we are better prepared for this future. So we set aside, I set aside some resources and started building on that capacity, right? And we started looking at some boring and some mundane challenges first, right? Just looked at some very basic stuff. And then we brought a leadership team to the table, said, okay, this is where we are. This is what the capacity is. This is where the industry is going. And we engaged the leadership to say, okay, what problem sets? What do you want us to focus on as we build on it, right? They gave us the leadership kind of said, okay, we need you to focus on this organizational risk area. Can you guys focus on this? And that particular area, I'll just say at a high level, involved ingesting large volume of physical paper records in a high risk environment, and then creating a interface for our users to quickly digest and manage and make decisions based on it to reduce the risk, streamline the process, and to minimize the time. So the team started working on something to that nature. But the other thing, right, to some of the ideas that were discussed, right, surreptitiously, as we were building on some of those ideas and capacities, what ended up happening is that the culture in the team, within the team, kind of changed. And it was interesting where we were about to, we were working on a complete replacement of our records management system, right? And our records management system is regional. So it's not only for us, it's for 10, 11 other agencies as well within the county. That's a massive take. And as we started to kind of work through the idea around, okay, how do we do now training for 5,000, 6,000 officers across the region and do it in an efficient way? It was really interesting. There was someone on the team kind of sent me a training video, right? I started looking at it and I'm like, wow, this is really great. How did you guys kind of crank this out so fast? They're like, well, we just had screen recording and we used a script to narration service that was available out of I want to say Azure natively. And we were starting to crank out those videos super fast, right? So no longer did we need to have a human sit down and kind of speak in a microphone and then chop up all the ums and uhs and clicks and background noises, right? Which allowed us just to solve very fundamental and mundane problem of how do we create training videos fast? And it all of a sudden became a force multiplier in terms of how fast we can create these things, right? One of those videos is available on our public side because we included in one of our new applications we deployed that needed sort of public to get some understanding on how to use this application, right? Our concealed carry weapons permitting application. We have a video on our public site. Believe it or not, the audio of that video is fully AI generated, right? So that's how we're positioning ourselves and building at least the capacity. And that's how we're thinking about AI in terms of not only really sort of focusing on the more enterprise strategy, but really just build knowledge and capacity by solving some very basic challenges.
I really love that perspective, Yost, because I think it starts to put things into, as Major Hook talked about, a crawl, walk, run scenario where we don't have to start with tackling the whole mountain or eating the whole elephant or whatever analogy we want to make, right? We can learn through some very simple things. What we see across the country is a lot of folks putting AI on the front of their public facing websites just to give the public better access to information and give you an idea or summarizations. But Chief Fetterman, I started with you, so I'd like to complete this round robin. Anything else come to mind in terms of, one of the ways that you're really excited about AI, how it can help you?
Well, much like Chief Whitaker and Major Hook were talking about, I think it really has to, for us, it's the reconciliation of a mass amount of information, right? Distilling it down to what we can make as actionable. I certainly don't see AI replacing any of our firefighters on any of our fire engines and or any of our paramedics or any of that stuff. But what I think it can do is make our people a lot more efficient, and that's what Yosh was talking about, that force multiplier, if you will, and that's how we seeing it being actionable. I think the reality is AI is here. We all have it in every one of our homes and every one of our phones, and it's all here. So the best thing we can do as public safety agencies is identify sideboards for our agencies and some parameters to use it effectively and safely. And certainly, that's kind of where our focus has been, how we can make it actionable. Number one, safe use as secondary.
Yeah, I'm gonna take the two words there, effectively and safely, for a second, and I'm gonna throw it back at you, Yosh. I know you mentioned sort of getting individuals together, getting your leadership together, and I remember the work we did with putting together that think tank with your team. And I mean, think tank is a word that has a positive connotation in some places and a negative connotation in others, in the sense that think tanks do a lot of thinking, but where's the acting? And so in our work, I know we talked a lot about sort of an actionable think tank, the idea that, okay, we're going to come up with all these things, but then we're going to start iteratively working on some of these other things. And so can you maybe touch on that just a little bit? And then, I see a question here in chat, and maybe any of you want to take that one as a follow-up, and including you, Yosh, like, since you're the one who talked about the training videos, and how is that perceived within the department and in a diverse sort of a audience that you're catering to. You're catering to individuals who've been in service for many, many years, and then you've got, digital natives that are coming into the workforce with a, like my partner calls it, a phone on their face all the time. So how do you cater to that? So I know I threw two questions at you, but maybe we want to touch on both.
So, I think from the think tank perspective, right, or kind of bringing the leadership together and sort of having that open discussion and building on ideas where, I'm a technologist by nature, right? By training, by background. So my natural tendencies are to go lean into technology, but my blind spots are operation and leadership, and really organizationally what they see as a risk or an opportunity, right? So from the think tank perspective, right, the idea that we executed on was we built our in-house knowledge and capacity. Then we brought all the sort of the vital stakeholders, small group of stakeholders to the table, and basically had a discussion around, okay, this is really the capability that's available to us from, let's say, generative AI, because Gen AI is kind of the flavor of last 2-3 years, right? So we'll just kind of talk about that generative AI. And really, we posed some ideas and had these discussions with the leadership to say, okay, where would you like us to focus some resources as now we are ready to solve some problems where product may not be available to address that, or where we see a situation where we can really iterate through these ideas, crawl, walk, run, right? And that allowed, and honestly, I was like, the use cases that I was seeing walking into that meeting were entirely irrelevant to the organization or the leadership, and they focused us in a direction which was important to the organization, realizing that yes, we are focusing on something that's really bleeding edge or really an edge situation where we may have it may take us a bit to achieve successful outcome, right? I think we had that meeting back in January, Sai, I want to say, right? So we had that conversation in January. We're in mid-October, probably for about last month or two. Those ideas or that direction that came out of that discussion, we built a product from it, and now we are working with our operational folks to ensure that a product is allowing them to interact with the data in a safe, consistent, and risk-averse fashion. And it really, so we are going to circle back with the leadership in a week or two where we're going to bring them together and say, remember, we discussed this in January. Now we're October. This is what we've built out, right? So that was a direct outcome of having that open and direct discussion that was really transparent around that. Now, as so that initially when we started down that path, right, immediately we had a stakeholder whose organization was going to be impacted by it at the table day one, right? As we're testing this out, right, the perception, every single individual within that organization that we presented this particular solution to, the response has been anywhere from the seasoned individuals to the new individuals, especially the seasoned individuals. They look at each other and say, where was this when we were in the trenches? We would have loved this in the trenches. I don't understand how you guys do this. I don't understand how this thing works, but it's amazing that this can deliver this level of value to the organization. So that's on one end of the spectrum. As far as the training videos and those are concerned, really across the board, organizations approach and our leadership is been sort of focused on, let's make sure that, and it's basically what I've heard from the other leaders on the call as well, is let's make sure that we work smarter, not harder. Right? Let's make sure that we insert efficiencies because we're not going to be able to hire our way out of the work that we're facing, right? So from the training video perspective, right, the feedback was really just encouraging and supportive with the idea that let's make sure that we now take this concept and scale it in additional further training, right? Instead of creating this whole audio recording and interaction where we would have to sit. Now, having said that, it's not in every case. It's in situations where we need to crank something out rapidly and we need to distribute it to the masses quickly, right? is how we're focusing on it, where it's short videos, concise, focused on training, ensuring that the message gets out there as rapidly and concisely as possible. So,
yeah, I love that. I think we often talk about AI being sort of a co-pilot, right? And this sort of lends to and co-pilot not as a noun, as a verb in this scenario, right? Lends to that ideology of sort of like, yeah, you've got this AI generated content. I mean, it needs support from human leadership. It's human people interacting with it. It's humans who are consuming it. So there is that wrapper that is critical for AI generated information or content to be successful. And so with that, I know you talked a little bit about sort of safe, having operational feedback in your applications, things like that. And I want to sort of talk about the other spectrum is sort of risk assessment and this idea of balancing innovation with understanding the ethical considerations. And maybe Chief Vinegar, if you want to talk about it from your lens, like, you know, you've obviously got the need for innovation. There's a lot more we can do, and there's only so much time we all have. And then on the other side is you want to make sure the ethical considerations of what's possible with AI. You want to make sure there's guardrails. You want to make sure there's a framework in place. So how do you look at that lens, and what are some recommendations or suggestions you might have for the audience here?
And I think start with the ethical piece. And I think perhaps an advantage over Yosh, who is a technologist. I'm a firefighter. And so I make no claims at being particularly good at this. And what it all comes back to for us is that we're not going full Skynet. Everything has to have, the point of decision has to be a human. And that human has to be trained, has to be supervised, has to have the appropriate scaffolding, excuse me, that we've always put around our decision makers. Just now, some of that scaffolding is in the form of tools, to your point, a co-pilot that does the things that we would have relied on an army of clerks and other people who have value, but who we don't trust to be the decision maker. If it's not the decision maker, let's incorporate all sorts of technology. The test for us, back to the point made a minute ago about the difference between technology natives and those of us in the dinosaur category. We did a little exercise not too terribly long ago with the command staff where we used generative AI to make a song. And you could come up with whatever topic you wanted. And demonstrably, AI was better, faster, made much better songs and sang them on key in a way that none of us were capable. Just as a way of pointing out, look, you had to tell it what you wanted done. And you had to make the decision about whether this was a song we would be willing to use as part of a department event. And that was the criteria. But you couldn't create the song. Right, so we need the human who's able to provide the parameters that the technology is working within. And we need the human to make the decision about whether that intelligence or that insight is actionable, and then the human to decide what that action is going to be. And as long as we maintain that human guardrail, I'm highly confident that we're meeting the answer. But that also means we need to understand what the components are, what the inputs are, and how those inputs are being weighted. So this isn't a black box that that announces all fires near people who voted in a certain way shouldn't be suppressed. Right, so we need to make sure that we have control over the system, but that ultimate control comes down to the human who's making the decision, who then is appropriately incentivized by the sense of responsibility and the accountability that they are only actioning the intelligence that meets the threshold that they are willing to accept. And that's a trust process, right? That's built over time, just like it would be with humans. Chief Veteran's point as an incident commander, there are people, division soups or others in the field who, when they say something, I'm sure based on his experience and relationship, he just says, do it, because that relationship is built, that confidence has been established over time. We need to have that same vetting process with our technologies, not just accept that because the box said we do this, therefore it is so.
Yeah, I loved what you said, because there is the process of the humans, and then there's the process of technology, and then there's the overlap of humans and technology, because they're all three different buckets, and impact is very different for all three. And I know, Kirk, we're doing a lot of conversation right now around sort of our responsible AI standard that, as you know, when we do our development in-house, we're talking about it, and we're seeing the federal government doing its work. We've got individual states and cities and counties that are establishing sort of frameworks and policies. Maybe you want to comment on that. And I know, I'm sure Major Hook has something to say about it, because I know he's probably having similar conversations. So Kirk, I'll first pass it on to you. You want to comment on that for a second?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. And I think one recommendation that we have from an industry perspective is that as all of you are looking at your AI capabilities, and there's lots of companies that do lots of wonderfully great things. Make sure you know and understand how they are approaching ethics, how they are approaching responsible AI, to start building that trust that Chief Whitaker was talking about. You have trust in who's providing, but then also, I love that comparison of the guy in the suit out there who said, "This is what's happening," and in that case, Chief Fetterman knows, I know that guy. He's right. We're going to do that right now. I don't need to ask any more questions. It'll be a while, I think, before we get to that. We need to prevent that automatic autopilot instead of the co-pilot aspect of the use of AI. Major Hook, you and I have had this exact conversation, right? I think we last spoke out in Virginia. Would love to get your perspective on, the implementation, the person in the loop, those types of things. What are on your mind?
So, we've all talked about human in the loop. If you've been to any sort of AI chat, human in the loop, right? And that's the theme. But really, where is the human in the loop is where Kirk and I had an interesting conversation. And we were talking about body camera data. And I won't get into particular vendors, but we piloted two different systems, and they approached it so differently. And I'll say this, you got to, when you're evaluating, is the AI assisting your operations, or is the AI not mature enough and learning off of you, right? And where we had some conflict internally was one tool would make claims that maybe were not fully informed of that human in the loop context about the quality of an interaction with a community member. The other approach, the other tool was, hey, there might be an issue here, there might not. We're not that good enough yet to tell if there's context, because certain words and certain turns of phrases and certain tones can be appropriate in certain situations and wildly inappropriate in others. And I think the second approach of we need a human to evaluate this is really a good use of AI, because it's taking that mundane task of going through hours and hours and terabytes of data and going, you might want to look at this. Could be a problem, or it could be good police work. You really don't know. So when you evaluate these things, it's where the human is in the loop. And then, cybersecurity is also paramount. And having built-in policies and procedures for evaluating AI is really important. I'll say this, we have a great partnership with our Department of Information Technology, and that's not always the case. I'm sure there's a lot of agencies here who maybe could stand to improve that relationship, but we have an architectural review board process for when we purchase and procure new technology. AI is now a component of that, and the attitude of our county leadership is not like one in fear. It's not no AI, this can never happen. It's let's evaluate it and look at the risks of information breaches, adverse impacts, inaccuracies. What's the error rate for this AI, and where's the potential risk? And it comes back to what Chief Whitaker said, the human in the loop at the beginning, in the middle, and at the end, right? Because you can't really discount human intuition, human relationships, and wisdom, right? That's what I now say as having done this 20 years. It's wisdom, not just experience that we have. So while this technology is really exciting, you have to, are you the product, or is the product helping you, kind of? And that's really where you have to look at with the vendors that are coming to maybe sell you the world. It's not going to solve all your problems.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, I love that.
I would take it.
Just a quick comment. Just a quick comment side. You made a really important point. Where is the human in the loop? One of the examples I heard someone talk about AI, especially in the world of generative AI, is imagine that you've just given 3,000 interns some really good instruction, and they need to return something back to you. I'm still not rubber stamping it, right? I'm still going to review. I still got to see enough. If it helps me get to 70%, that's fabulous, right? But we still have to be, and where they are in the loop is important, and there's no rubber stamping going on. Sorry, I stepped on you.
No, it's funny. I was listening to a podcast a couple of months ago. It actually took it one notch up. It said, not human just in the loop, but human at heart, like human in the heart. like it's really circled around the human process, and you can't just throw tools and technology at something just because it's available and just because someone's selling it and just because you can buy it. It's really about what is that mission. I mean, going back to, I think, Chief Winokur, your point when you kicked off was the mission is where it's at, especially this community that we're talking to. So I know, Chief Fetterman, we talk a lot about where do we start, right? And so I know we've had a number of conversations around, okay, so yes, we want to take over and solve all these massive world problems and solve crazy things and like Skynet and stuff like that, but we need to start somewhere. And how about just let's get rid of the unnecessary so we can focus on the necessary, right? So you want to comment on that and some of the work that we're starting to do and have some conversations in that space?
Yeah, I hear the conversations that we have ongoing, and it completely feels like we're building the plane as we fly it. We are literally establishing parameters for use while our personnel are in the field using ChatGPT and other tools that are available, open source tools, and so trying to develop the parameters is certainly important. But I always go back to that people, processing, technology. We have to be touching on all three at the same time, right? Improving our technology, improving our access for our staff, operational and professional staff to access safe tools. We have to instill in our processes utilization of those tools and AI, and then we have to circle back and focus on our people and how they use it and what their needs are. So we're certainly trying to push it in every avenue that it works to improve our service in Orange County Fire. But it's a cautiously optimistic or a cautious evolution. Anytime I have the conversation with our AT staff, it's safety and security. Our operations people are pushing use, and so everybody has a piece of the pie, if you will, on how we use it and which direction we go with it. And I think we just have to continue to evolve it, continue to have the conversations, so we can use it responsibly. But it's here. My 14-year-old's using it every day, so we have to be able to better use it in our agencies. And we always joke, because all of our staff are working 70 hours in a 40-hour work week, and so if we can make them a little bit more efficient, our leadership, and give them a little bit of time back and give them some time to be a little bit more thoughtful or about the decisions that we make, I think everybody wins in that scenario. Like I said, I don't see it as a scenario where it's taken the place of our people in the field, but just as a tool to make us more efficient.
Love that. Thoughtful is the key word there, right? I'm probably gonna switch gears for a second here, and maybe Yosh, will start with you. And you let's do a 30-second answer, if you will. If we will, let's try to get the maximum out of this 30 seconds, right? What partnerships or collaborations do you think are valuable for agencies? Now, I'm talking about agencies that are big, that are on the call, and then there's agencies that are 10 people within their department, right? So we do have a variety, and sometimes economies of scale work better regionally. So maybe a 30-second answer, what partnerships or collaborations do you think are valuable for agencies to look at?
I think I'll say from experience, and what we're seeing, the biggest return on investment specifically in this field for us has been partnering with local universities, right? These universities are cranking out talent that are really immersed and trained in this new emerging field of AI, right? So for us, we have phenomenal partnership with UCSD Data Science Institute right in our own backyard. I have about 12 to 16 interns that are coming in every single day, ranging from freshman to senior, that are being trained academically, and then we're bringing their knowledge in to apply that to pragmatic and practical use cases. I would say that's been, at least in my perspective, right, outside of technology, outside of operations, outside of everything else, that's been the best partnership we've implemented so far, because not only are we able to bring talent in that we can afford on government salary, but we're also bringing in motivated young people that are really focused on mission and purpose. It's incredible how well that particular group cohort is delivering. Extremely intimidating and very, very, very smart people.
Intimidating. I mean, for sure, right? I mean, I like feel like in the world of AI, 1 year is like a dinosaur year. It's like it's crazy. Major Hook, you want to comment on sort of partnerships and collaborations that perhaps in your world?
Sure. I'm going to just approach it's somewhat of a different angle than Yosh, the community. And because in Virginia, we've seen where we get cool technology, the public perception's not always, and the trust is not always there. So specifically legislators and regulating authorities, you need to, as particularly in law enforcement, keep them apprised of what you're doing and help really determine best practices so that you don't lose a great capability when used appropriately. So really setting the standards for best practices will help to make sure that we're all doing what we're supposed to be doing and that the public doesn't perceive this as Skynet or something that could be really misused when not done with guardrails.
Chief Winokur, I know you're surrounded by a lot of AI out there where you are, and it's sometimes it's hard to pick partnerships and collaborations when you have a lot of them. So, I mean, just curious to hear your lens on that.
It is. I think probably 2/3 of the UC Berkeley faculty live in the fire district, and so we have some embarrassments of riches in that regard. I found real at the local level, working through the County Chiefs Association and network of other agencies that I know personally. Hey, what are you guys using? How's it working? And if it's working well for them, well, they've done the vetting for us. That makes it really easy to get to yes. The other one then is through the state and the nationwide associations, obviously IAFC, in our case, Cal Chiefs, where those entities are actively vetting and screening vendors. I would foot stomp for both entities here since I'm at the platform, saying the degree to which those regional and statewide and national agencies listen carefully to what their members need and then are carefully vetting and screening what's available. I mean, just as you and I talk, Sai, in advance of this, within the ecosystem of everything we already have in O365 that we already paid for, right? There's all kinds of stuff in there that we just don't know how to use. And so finding those opportunities to leverage what we have, figuring out who's done it so we can slipstream. There's nothing new under the sun in this space. We all have the same problems. Just we have different rank structure and we have different titles, but the problems are universal. And figuring out who solved it and then doing what they did. No reason to reinvent the wheel.
Chief Fetterman, your take on that?
Yeah, I think it starts by all the conversations that we have been having. I know, Sai, you and I have had some high-level conversations on national preparation for disasters and how we can utilize AI in that realm. But it really starts with, to Chief Winokur's point, is, hey, what did you do to solve this problem, or how did you use this tool? And leveraging our relationships with each other and not lose the human element when we're talking about AI. A lot of that is a lot of our agencies. I'm not going to say all the agencies on this experience do, but a lot of agencies tend to work in silos, and that's okay. So in order to get out of that and just understand how other people are using the tools, can certainly save a lot of time in our implementations and rollouts and utilization of the same AI tools, and or building those skill sets within our people. I think that you'll hear me say people as often as I say AI, because that's ultimately that fundamental linchpin that we were talking about.
Kirk, you want to?
We've talked
I know
a lot.
we're coming down to the wire here. You want to sort of bring us home here on sort of grounding?
Yeah, so a couple of things that we really want to get to, and so we want to hear from all of you on this. Maybe two things. 3 years from now, what do you think will be happening? And then rewind back. What can you recommend to your peers? One thing to do right now. So, Major Hook, where do you see us in 3 years? Something you see happening in 3 years, and what do you recommend to your peers right now?
Ooh, 3 years. That's that's a lifetime here. You're going to see more connected systems, really more real-time connected systems, right? The advent of the real-time crime center and the different data sources there, the concept of the single pane of glass. Um, we got a lot of our mission critical systems in there, but you're going to start to see deeper analysis that could include things like HR data, more weather data, really to drive operations, incidents, and event response. My recommendation would be to continue to network, right? So for me, that's IACP, but thank you to the firefighters for inviting a cop today, and I appreciate there were no donut jokes, but I can learn a lot from the fire department. I'm blessed to work in a county where our fire department is one of the best in the country, and I learn from them all the time, and they solve problems in ways that I just, because of my training, wouldn't think about doing it that way. So looking beyond your scope at how maybe others do things, just gotta continue to network and learn from your peers.
Wonderful. Yosh, 3 years from now, what about right now?
This is being recorded, so sure as 3 years from now, I want to be proven wrong, which inevitably I will be. But I do think that 3 years from now, we will see further intelligent edge, more and more of devices, sensors, things that we're interacting with will have these capabilities, which will be far more intelligent in nature. As a result, overall cost and affordability of some of these things will go down, right? Simultaneously, it will, if we're not, simultaneously, I do expect a state of California or nationally additional regulation and regulatory bodies coming in to implement management and oversight of AI as a whole. I know earlier in the month, it's just state of California governor's desk had 38 legislation that in variety of shape or form had AI related regulation, right? One of the ones that was signed involved using celebrities and their AI generated personas. So I see heavy intelligent edge while regulatory and legislative frameworks kicking in, right? Our goal is to ensure that we're not the ones that really are the trigger for that legislative approach. As far as, right now, at least for me, what I look at is I look at Chief Whitaker's backyard, right? Where is the venture capital funding going? Where is the Silicon Valley going? Where are some of the startups going, right? That's what I look at. To Chief Hook's point, look outside the bubble, right? Outside your own sort of narrow lane. So I always look at what is A16Z doing? What is Y Combinator doing, right? What is Silver Lake doing? What are they investing in? What are those startups looking like? And where are those startups going, right? Because that's what's going to happen 3 to 4 years from now. So at least that's my take on it.
Thank you, Chief Whitaker. What do you think?
I think we're at an inflection point. In 3 years from now, we're either going to be buried in data that we didn't plan for properly and failed to break down the silos. I think we all have a real challenge in that we have legacy proprietary systems we're invested in, we've trained in them, we've got a lot of data that's archived in them, either physical or digital. And if we fail to figure out how to integrate those, or going forward, we create new data management systems that are not pools or lakes, that are silos and carefully compartmentalized and segmented, we're going to end up with a real problem. And it's going to be asymmetric advantage to those we compete with here as they figure out and adapt in real time how to integrate their data, and we don't. We're going to end farther and farther behind. And I think, I'm sure in law enforcement, this would play out in many different ways, but in the fire side, looking just at things like litigation following incidents and controversial code reviews and those sort of things. If we are not able to keep pace, we're quickly going to find ourselves outpaced. And so that forming those data lakes deliberately from the beginning, I think is going to be critical to our ability to compete 3 years from now.
I think you've really hit on a one thing to do now idea there, Chief, is let's look at our data. Let's get our data ready for AI. Mm-hmm. Chief Fetterman, you want to bring us home on this?
Well, I think one of the things that I'm focused on is the operational impacts from the use of AI. And I think we're really going to see that in fire and emergency services and the autonomy autonomy of vehicles, autonomy of drones, autonomy of any of those fleets of equipment that are going to impact us on the roads, impact our people. And I think that's going to be a real game changer, both positively and negatively. So I think we have to be looking at all these different aspects at the same time. And then we have to invest in our agencies to be prepared for. I think that's the ultimate end point, is start investing in our preparation for all of this now.
That's fantastic. I mean, I personally learned a ton in the last hour. I just want to say a huge thank you, Kirk and I, on behalf of Microsoft, for your commitment and partnerships to, again, what you do, and then thanks to the IAFC team for pulling this webinar together. We hope you were able to capture one or two things that you can take back to your department and to your peers. And again, next week is IACP in Boston. We'll probably see some of our law enforcement friends out there. And then for those with the fire service and others, we have TSI coming up in Oklahoma in December. So we hope to see you there. And thank you all for your time today. Again, panelists, and really appreciate what you do.
Wow, Cy, Kurt, thank you very much to Microsoft for sponsoring this and bringing these experts together. I certainly learned a lot and explained a lot to me too about the inner workings really between fire and police, and we actually need to be doing more work together as a public safety team with Microsoft on this issue. So look forward to something like that being put together and proposed. So again, thank you very much to our panelists. And great job. And again, like I mentioned, we look forward to seeing everybody at TSI in December in Oklahoma City to have more conversations just like this. So thank you very much. Thanks all of our people who attended today. If you have any questions, please reach out to the IAFC or myself, and then you will be getting a link to the recording and the survey at the email address that you used to sign up for this webinar. Thank you very much, and talk to everybody soon.